everybody, welcome to the channel. My name is Mike Gaudet, and today I want to talk about some different voice leading ideas for a 2-5-1 progression. So first off, let's talk about what the term voice leading means. Basically, voice leading is the smooth movement between a set of notes that is used to outline the sound of a particular chord progression. So in the case of a 2-5-1 progression, we have three different chords, which means that we have three notes that we can choose that will outline the sound of that particular chord movement. And there are a wide variety of different ways that we can voice lead through a 2-5-1 progression. And not only is it beneficial for your chordal playing and your comping, but it's also great for your improvising as well. And it really helps you understand some of the building blocks to jazz harmony and jazz vocabulary, and all of the different movements that we're going to talk about today are movements that we will encounter in a wide variety of different jazz standards. And for somebody who is looking to expand their knowledge of jazz harmony, I think doing voice leading ideas through 2-5-1 progressions is the best first step that you can do, because 2-5-1s are the most common progression in jazz music, and there are a lot of different options that we can draw upon that give us a lot of different sounds to explore. So today we're going to be covering 16 different voice leading ideas for chords over 2-5-1 progressions. And if you'd like a printout of everything that I go over today, you can either Venmo me or PayPal me $5 and just shoot me your email address, and I'll be happy to send you over a sheet with everything that I cover today. And this is going to be a multi-part series, so this is part 1. And today we're going to be covering 2-5-1s where we are starting on the 5th string root for our 2 chord, then we start on the 6th string for our 5 chord, and then back to the 5th string for the 1 chord. So I like to start there because it's on the lowest part of the neck. We're going to stick to the key of C, so D minor 7, G7, and C major 7. And by the end of the video, you should have a lot of new ideas to explore for both your chord playing as well as ideas from these chords that you can use to come up with some new improvisation ideas within your lines. All right, I think that is about it. Let's jump right into it. All right, so we're going to start out, like I said, the key of C major. So we're doing a 2-5-1, D minor 7, G7, C major 7. So I'm going to start out for the 2 chord. I'm going to play D, F, C. So this is a D minor 7, just a 3-note voicing, the root, the flatted 3rd, and then the flatted 7th. Now, with voice leading, it's the top note that's going to be dictating the movement of the voice leading. So I see that I have the flatted 7th of the D minor 7 chord on top. So I have a couple of different options with where I can go. I can go up, I can go down. We're going to start out by going down. So this is the most common, voice leading idea that you hear in 2-5-1. So you take the flatted 7th of the 2 chord, you move it down a half step, and it becomes the 3rd of the 5 chord, of the G7 chord. So for the G7, I'm going to do G, F, B, right? So that's root, flatted 7th, and 3rd. So now the voice leading on top is flatted 7th of the 2 chord, down a half step to the 3rd of the dominant chord, and then I'm just going to resolve to a C major 7, C, E, B, 1, 3, 7. So the 7th is just staying on top. So the voice leading for that was... Okay, so that's very common, going from the 7th down to the 3rd, and then resolving to the 7th with 3-note voicings. So that would be an idea where we're going downward. Now I said we can also go upward if we want. So let's say we take that same first chord, that D minor 7, but now we want to go up a half step. So if I go up a half step to D flat, that is now the flatted 5th of the G7 chord. So I can play this G7 flat 5 voicing. So now I have... And then I can go up another half step and it becomes the 9 of the 1 chord, the C major 7 chord. So now we have a C major 9 voicing, C, E, B, D, 1, 3, 7, 9. So that one goes... Right, so all I did was change the direction. Rather than going down, I said I want to go upward, and then I just came up with a new set of voicings just based off of that upward movement. Okay, so those are 2 ideas where we have the flatted 7th on the top of the D minor chord. Now we're going to do it with the root note of the D minor chord on top. So basically what I'm doing is just taking the 2 chord and doing a couple of different ideas with each note of the 2 chord on top. So we started with the flatted 7th, next we're going to do the root, and then we'll do the 9, the flatted 3rd, the 11, the 5th, the 13th, and the flatted 7th again. So running all the way up the Dorian scale in the key of D with, each note on top, and then voice leading off of that chord. So the next voicing I'm going to do, I'm going to take that same D minor 7 that we had, but I'm going to bar my pointer finger so I can get the root note on top. So we have 2 root notes. We have root, flatted 3rd, flatted 7th, and then root again. So we can do this. Now we can either go up or down. I'm going to start by going down. So if I move down a half step, it becomes the flatted fifth of the G7 chord. Now if I wanted to keep going down another half step, now it's just a C note, so it's the root note. So I could do a C6 chord for the one chord, so C, E, A, C. Now we get this. Now let's say we want to go in the opposite direction. So I'm still going to start with the D minor 7 with the D on top. Now if I go up a half step, now we get the sharp 5 of the G7 chord. So G, F, B, D sharp, G7 sharp 5. And if I go up another half step, C major 7 with the third on top, right? So in these particular instances, everything is moving in half steps. That's not always going to be the case 100% of the time. It depends on what chord you're on and what note is on top. But in these first couple of instances, we were able to do them all with half steps, which is great because half steps are always really nice and smooth from a voice leading standpoint. All right, so there's 2 with the root note of the D minor on top. Now I'm going to switch to the 9. So we're going to take a D minor 9 chord. So now I can go down a half step again, and it becomes the G7 sharp 5. And if I want to go down another half step, it becomes the C major 9. So these half steps have really been, coming through in these first couple of examples. That's an incredibly common one. There are tons of jazz standards where you hear that sound in the melody, like Wahoo by Charlie Parker, Laura, Pent Up House by Sonny Rollins. So really common sound. All right, now I'm going to take the same D minor 9 chord, and I'm going to go upward instead. So if I go up a half step, now it becomes the flatted 7th of the G7 chord. And this is a note that's kind of tricky to harmonize on the guitar. There's not a ton of great voicing options if you want to get some color tones in there. So I'm going to try this one. It's a little bit of a stretch, but it's a G7 flat 9. So this might be a little tricky for some people, but pointer finger on G, skip a string, then put your ring finger on A flat, which is the flatted 9th, middle finger on B, and then we can just go back down to the C major 7 with the third on top, right? So that gives us the voice leading on that one is so. Or if we want to go up for all 3 of them, we can do the same first 2 chords. And then I'm still keeping the same C major 7, but I'm barring across to get the G note on top. So now I'm going rather than, okay. And if this chord is too tricky for you, you can just go like this. Just bar your pointer finger. It's like a G7 with the doubled 7th. I'm not a huge fan of that voicing. I try to avoid that if I can, but if this is too much of a stretch, you can just put that in place of it and it works fine. Okay, now we're going to do a couple with the flatted third on top of the D minor 7 chord. So rather than doing this D minor 7, I'm going to do this one. I just find that this one works better in this particular position. So it's a D, F, C, F, so it actually is a doubled third. But we're going to do the flatted third on top. Then if I want to go down a half step, it becomes the 13 of the G chord, so a G13. And then I could just keep that note the same, and it's a C major 7 chord with the third on top. Now let's start with that same first chord again, the D minor 7. Now let's say I want to go down a whole step instead of a half step. I could do the G7 sharp 5, and then up a half step to the C major 7. With the third on top. So that one I get a different note for each chord. Right, the first one I had to go. The second and third chord had the same note on top, but by just changing that second chord, now I have, a different movement for each voicing. All right, now let's move on to the 11. So I'm going to do a D minor 11 chord. So D, middle finger on D, skip a string, ring finger on C, pinky on F, pointer finger on G. Now let's say I want to go up a half step. I could do a G7 flat 9, G, F, B, A flat, and then I can go back down a half step and do the C major 7 with the G on top. So that's. Now let's say I want to go up for all 3 of them. I can do the same first 2 chords. And then if I go up another half step, it actually becomes the 13 of the C chord. So I could do the C major 13. So C, B, E, A. I like that chord. So now we have. Okay, now I'm going to do the 5th on top. So I'm going to do this D minor 7. You can either bar it like this, or you can do this, whichever one you're more comfortable with. I'm going to do it like this. Now if I want to go down a half step, I could do the G7 flat 9 again. And then if I want to go down another half step, C major 7 with the G on top. Now let's start with that same first chord with the 5th on top. Now let's say I want to go up a half step, then I can turn it into a G7 sharp 9. So now it's kind of a dense voicing, but G, F, B, and then A sharp. And then I'm going to go back down to the C major 7 with the G on top. So that's been our biggest jump yet, going from the A sharp down to the G. That's a minor 3rd. So. All right, now I'm going to do the same first 2 chords, D minor 7 with the A on top, G7 sharp 9. Now let's say I want to keep going up. I could go up another half step and it becomes the major 7th of the C. So another stretchy voicing, but C, G, E, B. Pointer finger on C, middle finger on G, ring finger on E, pinky on B. So now we have, that's a nice one. All right, now let's try one with the 13 on top of the D minor 7 chord. You don't typically see this one get used as often. I would say of the 3 color tones, the 9, 11, and the 13 is the one that you will encounter the least when it comes to minor chords, but it definitely still can be used, and there are plenty of songs that do incorporate it. Like look at the first chord of Blue and Green by Miles Davis. That's a beautiful minor 13 voicing. So this one I'm just going to take a D minor 13, so D, C, F, B. Now I can go down a half step and it becomes the G7 sharp 9 again. And then I'm going to go down to the C major 7 with the G on top. So the voice leading there was, which is nice. All right, and then for the last one of the video, just to kind of cover the full range, I'm going to take a similar idea that we started with the flatted 7th on top, but I'm going to do it up here instead. So this voicing is going to be D, A, F, C. So root 5th, flatted 3rd, flatted 7th. Then I'm going to go down a half step so it turns into the 3rd of the G7 chord. I really hate this voicing right here, the stock G7 chord. So I'm just going to leave the D, the 5th, the D note out, and I'm just going to do this so it's more of a Freddie Green voicing. So G, F, B, and then that's our 3rd on top, and then we resolve back to that same spread C major 7 chord again. All right, so those are 16 different voicing ideas for voice leading through a 2-5-1 progression. And like I said earlier, the way I came up with these was I basically just took my 2 chord, I started with the flatted 7th on the top, and then I just experimented with all the different directions, going up, going down, and just seeing how many different types of voicing combinations I could come up with to harmonize the 2-5-1 progression. And then I worked that same idea through the remainder of the notes over the D minor 7 chord. And obviously there are many, many more beyond what I just covered in today's video, but these should hopefully be a couple of good ones just to get you started out and get some of these new sounds into your ears. And you know, once you get more and more comfortable with this, you will start hearing these sounds more and more in jazz standards. Like I said, these are really key components to jazz harmony and just the language of jazz vocabulary. And if you can train yourself to hear a lot of these things more, it will really help your ears, and it will just give you a much better overall understanding of the standards that you are playing over and how, you know, harmonically they are operating. All right, so that is it for the video today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it was enjoyable, and I hope you learned some stuff. And if you're interested, please check out some of my lesson videos for sale on Mike's Masterclasses. I have a bunch of different lessons from my improv style series where I cover different licks from a variety of different jazz instrumentalists. I do transcriptions of a bunch of their licks and do lessons analyzing them, talking about what's going on within them to get some of those sounds into your own playing. And I've covered a bunch so far. I've done Oscar Peterson, Sonny Stitt, Joe Pass, Cannonball Adderley, a couple of others that I can't remember right now, but it'll be up on the screen for you to check out. And like I said, if you want a sheet of all of these voicings that I just covered, just shoot me $5 to either my Venmo or my PayPal, which will be linked in my description, and I will be happy to send you over a sheet of these voicings. All right, that's it for today. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you at the next video. Take care.